Everyone. So this week for our video critique, we looked at two different videos. The first video was about B.F. Skinner and the teaching machine, and then the second video was kind of all about behaviorism, cognitivism, constructivism, and then those types of learning. So I'm going to just start off with kind of the three things that I learned the most on and that I can tie back to what we learned in the section. And those were the different theories. And those theories kind of give us a perspective or different viewpoint. So we really looked at behaviorism, cognitivism, and constructivism. So behaviorism, we'll start with that, is kind of your mind is a black box, and kind of learning is the expected response. You are expecting a response from a student, and that's how we know that they learn the material. So it's a lot of repetition and reinforcement, and it really is more of a practice makes perfect approach. Moving on to cognitivism, that's kind of where we look at our mind as a computer. It's kind of where we want students to recall information. We want to grab their attention and then help them store that information in kind of the long-term memory. And then we have constructivism, and that's when our mind is a rhizome. So we're building knowledge by doing. It's more of kind of a hands-on learning approach, and you really want to guide your learners to solve problems. So looking at those three perspectives and theories, we come up with two different types of learning, and that is descriptive learning and prescriptive learning. So descriptive learning is kind of looking at the overall question, what is learning? And then prescriptive is kind of how do we help our students learn? What instructional strategies should we use to help them learn? So those are kind of the three takeaways that I found. The first video talked all about teaching machines, so I found that to be very interesting. I've never really seen that. So it's kind of a much different approach. The students see information pop up on their machine, and part of the problem or an answer is missing, and they just must write the answer or solve the problem, and then they operate the machine, and then they'll learn right away whether they got that answer or that problem right or wrong. So it really gives that immediate feedback. Um, and so that'll help to or lead to correct that behavior right away. So I thought that was cool and interesting. They also said that it was motivating for students, which looking at that video, I would find that probably a little bit boring, and just staring at a machine is not the way I would want to learn per se. But he talked about how it was motivating for students because they wouldn't have any anxiety thinking about whether or not they got the problem right, which I guess is true. So it kind of reduces the anxiety portion. Um, and it leads to efficient learning. We talked about how with the teaching machines, they're free to move at their own pace, which is interesting and a good thing to note. And because it is kind of when they're moving at their own pace, it is most effective for that individual student, because you might have one student who is gifted and can, solve 3 standards in a day. And then you might have, your student who is learning at a slower pace and might need to redo and repeat and practice a certain skill over and over again, but they're still learning that same skill. He talked about how it follows a program. So they'll start not knowing a skill or a standard, and then they'll move on and practice that skill until they're efficient. So you only can move on once you master that skill, which I thought was interesting. And they give in the teaching machine, they give its steps in order, and they're small steps. So the material is designed to help the student. So overall, I thought that was really interesting. It's definitely not something we see nowadays, but interesting to think. And then the one question that I do have, going back to the theories and the different viewpoints, It's just kind of what perspective or theory is seen most in schools throughout the US. I mean, we know or we're told that all of or we learn all of these different theories, and we're supposed to put them into practice, but which one should we put into practice, or should we have a mixture? That sort of thing. So that's kind of the only question that I took from these videos, but yeah, great videos, a lot of takeaways, and I hope you guys have a great week.